Hi Rockstars, I'm Aly, your Rockstar Bar Girl, and welcome to the Rockstar Bar Girl Tip of the Week.
I'm a rock star. Every day I rock hard. I'm a motherfucking rock star. Every day I rock hard. I'm a rock star.
Hi Rockstars, I'm Aly, your Rockstar Bar Girl. Excuse my exhausted face. I just got back from yoga and the instructor today really kicked our butts. But I wanted to hop on here really quick to give you your tip of the week, which is all about the dreaded health inspection. What do you do when the health inspector comes around, and how do you avoid having the bar be one of the issues that the health inspector cites your bar or restaurant for? So the health inspectors, a couple things to know about them. Each state has their own health department that is responsible for setting the standards for like health regulations at your bar or restaurant. I live in New York, and in New York that is the New York State Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. They are in charge of the health inspectors, and they're also the people that will issue your food handler's certification if you decide to go for it, which I highly recommend every bartender do. If you get your food handler's certification, then you are going to have a really good understanding of what the health inspector is going to be looking for when they arrive. No one wants to be the bartender working when the health inspector comes in and gives a negative inspection grade as a result of conditions behind the bar. So even if you aren't in control of the overall health standards at your bar or restaurant, there are definitely things that you can do on your shift just to make sure that the bar, doesn't look so bad. All right, so first, how do you know that the health inspector is in your bar or restaurant? I want to dispel some myths, things that I heard when I started bartending that freaked me out, that turned out not to be true. So first of all, the health inspector is not sitting at your bar secretly watching all the things that you're doing, writing you up and looking for things to catch you on. They are required to announce themselves. They will be dressed in uniform, and they will present you with a badge and ID to show that they are the health inspector. The health inspector is also not going to be creeping around your bar or restaurant after hours. Just like anybody else that works for a government agency, they pretty much only work from Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. The health inspector will typically stand near the front door before the person in charge comes over and greets them and kind of officially gives them permission to begin their inspection. If the health inspector arrives either before the restaurant is open or after it's closed, you do not have to grant them access. In fact, you shouldn't grant them access. Health inspections can only be conducted during operating hours. So that means when you are actually open. So if you haven't opened yet for business, then you can simply let them know that you're not open yet, and they have to come back when you are. So what do you do when the health inspector arrives? Whether you are the person in charge or not, the very first thing that you want to do is to inform everyone that the health inspector is there. Kitchen, bartender, back of house, front of house. Every single person that works, owners, every single person that works for the restaurant or is related to the restaurant needs to know that the health inspector is there so that they can fly into action in their respective positions and start doing what they need to do to make sure that everything is on the up and up. I worked in a bar once that had a really cool system, and I try to replicate it wherever I go. I encourage you guys to talk to your managers, bar managers, if you're watching. This is a really, really good idea. Bar managers, you should program your POS with a button that says health inspector. Program that button to print at all terminal printers. So anywhere where a ticket would print, program the button to print to that, so that the bartender or server who first sees that the health inspector is there can hit that button, and a ticket will print everywhere around the restaurant saying the health inspector is here. At the restaurant where we utilized that was very helpful because it was a very big restaurant. So going around and telling everybody that the health inspector is here is a little bit difficult. Having that button meant the kitchen, the bar, the servers, everybody got a ticket that said health inspector is here, and everybody could start tidying up or doing whatever they needed to do to make sure that they were ready. What you don't want to do if you are speaking with the health inspector is to offer them anything, even a glass of water. This could be construed as a bribe. That's like a really big deal in New York. I'm not sure if it's a big deal for every health department, but in New York, I guess it was a problem in the past, bars and restaurants bribing health inspectors into giving them good inspections with food and drink and things like that. So they are very strict about that. So don't offer the health inspector water or anything like that. Don't try to talk them up or be extra nice. Just let them know that you recognize that they're here and inform them that you're going to go tell the manager or whomever that they have arrived. If you are the person in charge, the health inspector doesn't know that until you tell them so. So at first, just pretend like you're not the person in charge and say, hold on 1 second. This will give you time to go around to all of the respective departments, the bar, the restaurant, the servers, the bussers, etc., and let everyone know that the health inspector is here. And then you can return to the health inspector and say, oh, the manager isn't here. That means I'm in charge right now. What can I help you with? And usually they don't really need anything from you. They know what they're looking for. They just need access to everything. So they might need you to open up any locked rooms, offices, or things like that. So once the health inspector has been greeted and everybody has been informed that they are there, what do you do? Servers, when you greet your tables, if your bar or restaurant has a policy of stopping service during the inspection, it's a good idea to let your tables know that things might be a little delayed coming out of the kitchen. It's super important that you be really on top of drink service and offer them anything you can that doesn't involve the kitchen. So if you are a bar or restaurant that provides snacks or maybe bread baskets or things like that that don't have to be cooked to your table, then you want to make sure that you get those to your guests right away so that they at least have something to drink and to snack on while they wait for their orders to be completed. You're also going to want to turn your attention to the service areas because in the service areas there may be fruit, juice, milk, coffee, tea, and ice, and other edible things that come under the umbrella of the health inspector. So you're going to want to go over to your service stations and just take a look around and make sure that everything is all good. I'm going to go over in detail for the bar all of the things you want to check on, and servers, make sure to pay attention because some of those things could apply to you. So bartenders, what do we need to do behind the bar to be ready for the inspection? Let's start off with our sani buckets and our rags. You are required to have a sani bucket underneath each, I believe it's underneath each well. So if you have a long bar that has 2 or 3 well stations, then you're going to want to have 2 or 3 sani buckets. If you're not sure, get more. You will never get in trouble for having too many. Make sure that you have sanitizer and warm water in your buckets. So if it's been a few hours since you initially set your buckets up, you're going to want to quickly go ahead and refresh those. Pour everything out, refill them with warm water and the appropriate amount of sanitizer and a rag. If there's no rag in your bucket, then the health inspector knows that you're not using it. So even if you don't normally store a rag in the bucket, put a rag in the bucket. When it comes to rags, make sure that there are no wet rags just laying around the bar. If you have extra rags behind the bar, they should be dry and folded and tucked away for use. If they've been used, the assumption is that bacteria can grow on them even if they aren't soaking wet. So make sure to put any rags that have been used into a sani bucket. Don't leave them laying around. If you're the type of bartender to wear a rag on the side of your belt or on your pocket or something for easy access, There's kind of like a debate about that in terms of whether or not that's a good practice. Personally, I like to do it. I don't like having my hands wet, and I like to dry my hands before I touch things that I'm going to be giving to a guest. But that rag technically counts as a rag laying around. So you're going to want to take any rags that you have on your person off and put those into a sandy bucket as well. Next, take a look at your garnish situation. If you do not have a set of tongs by your fruit, immediately put one there. You must have tongs by your garnishes because you are supposed to use a tong anytime you garnish a glass. Oftentimes this doesn't happen the way that it should, and your bar might be slacking and you may not have tongs. If you don't have tongs, do yourself a favor and just dump the whole garnish tray. Everything, olives, cherries, limes, lemons, everything goes in the trash. This is the one day where your manager will forgive you for being wasteful, because throwing away that garnish is way, way better than getting a citation for not having tongs by your fruit. So just throw them in the trash. You can always refill them when they are gone, and you can always serve drinks without garnishes. No one's gonna die if they don't have a lemon on their drink. If you do have tongs, make sure to put a set at every single garnish tray. That includes the garnish tray that the servers are using. So if there's a garnish tray in the service station, make sure that there's a tong for those as well. Next, take a look at your refrigerators. There are 3 things that you want to make sure are okay in the refrigerators. First of all, you want to make sure that the refrigerators are not warmer than 41 degrees Fahrenheit. There should be a thermometer in each refrigerator, so it should be really easy to tell whether or not your refrigerator is too hot. If your bar is slacking and you don't have thermometers in your refrigerator, unfortunately, there's really nothing you can do about it. And you're just in one of those circumstances where hopefully management understands that that's their fault. It's not your responsibility as a bartender to provide thermometers for the refrigerators. It's management and ownership's responsibility. So if they haven't, then they're just gonna have to take the citation for not having thermometers. But if they are in there, then you need to check them and make sure that the refrigerators are not too hot. The second important thing to look for in your refrigerators is anything that has been opened or cut that is not labeled or dated. So if you've cut backup fruit for yourself, they should be in covered containers that are labeled and dated. And finally, you want to make sure that there's no outside food or beverage in the refrigerators. So if you brought a snack, if somebody left their sandwich from the night before, if someone's got their juice, you want to take those out of the refrigerator. You don't have to throw them out necessarily. You could tuck them in your bag, put them in your locker, or just relocate them to some other place. Personal food and beverage items that have been opened and eaten and aren't labeled and dated and things like that could get you into trouble. So any personal food or beverage items, go ahead and get those out of there. Next, take a look at your ice. I've talked about this in previous videos. Your ice counts as food. So anything that applies to food applies to your ice. So this means you shouldn't have stuff in the ice that you are going to be using to make drinks with. You might have a separate well for juices and purees that has ice on them. That is totally fine as long as that well is separate from the ice that you're using to serve drinks to guests. But if for some reason, and you shouldn't really be doing this, but if for some reason you are using your ice well to store bottles of wine, fruit, juices, etc., get those out of there right away. Also critically important is your ice scooper. If your ice scooper is in the ice, that is one of the worst violations that you can get. So make sure to not have that in there. Again, you shouldn't be leaving it in there, but if for some reason it is, get that out of there and store it in its holster. The annoying thing about ice wells is holsters often, over time, the screws come loose, they fall off. Bars and restaurants are not always good about replacing them. So you can take that ice scooper and put it in your well, like right along with your bottles. Just put it in the well with the bottles. That is better than leaving it in the ice. The idea is that there is bacteria from your hands on the handle of the ice. So you want to keep the handle, or the handle of the ice scooper, so you want to keep the handle of the scooper away from any ice that is going to be consumed. And finally, you want to avoid making drinks during this time. Like I said, your bar or restaurant might have a policy of just stopping service altogether when the health inspector is there. But if they don't have that policy, while they're behind the bar, I would try to avoid actually making a drink for anybody. This will help minimize the chances that you do anything that could get you into trouble. Guests that are seated at the bar typically see that the health inspector is there, and they're as interested in what's going on in the inspection as you are, and they're as worried about it as you are. So no one sitting at the bar is going to give you a hard time if you literally are like, just 1 second. Opening bottles of beer or pouring glasses of wine would be exceptions to this. You kind of almost can't go wrong there, so you can definitely do those things. You could probably also pour a draft beer without worrying about anything, but actually building cocktails, I would delay that and wait until the inspector is no longer behind the bar to resume building drinks. So that's a rough overview of what you should be doing and what you should expect when the health inspector shows up at your bar or restaurant. When it comes to serving people food and drink in a commercial environment, there are a lot of rules and regulations. There are a lot of ways in which you could make a person sick or harm them. So there's a lot to know. I could honestly do a whole video just on your Sani bucket and your rags. But this is just an overview of some of the things that you want to do or pay attention to really quickly when the health inspector walks in, just to minimize any issues or citations that are a result of the bar or blamed on the bartender. If you like this video or you found it helpful, definitely click the thumbs up. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them for me down below. And of course, remember to subscribe. Click on the bell button to get notifications every time a new video comes out. Follow me on Instagram at rockstar_bargirl, and please check out my website, therockstarbargirl.com. I have a complete Rockstar bar kit available that has every tool a new bartender needs. I think you'll really like it, as well as free videos and a complete online course designed to teach you everything you need to know to go out there and get a rockstar bartending job. So definitely check it out. I think you'll find it really helpful. As always, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, Rockstars.
Rockstar.